Okay, hi Azim, welcome to the BSc demonstration. So this is the backscattered electron microscope. It's Flex M1000. It's from Hitachi. So how do you start this machine is if you come here, you can see the switch. So you first switch on this green switch, and what you are hearing is the noise of the vacuum. So what the instrument is going to do is it's going to first pump out the air and create the equilibrium. So as long as these lights are flashing, that means the power is on and the instrument is still trying to evacuate. Once the evacuation is completed, it will be stabilized. Okay. Now once it is stabilized, then you can start working on this. So we go to the machine and then we switch on the machine. Pause. No, I don't have an iPhone.
There is no starter. There's just start button. Nothing. That just takes the picture. Yeah, there's no flash.
I don't know iPhones. Now what we do is we first have to calibrate them using our standards. So this two are the standards and this is the Faraday cup. This allows us to measure the current. We have to standardize the current, we have to standardize the working distance. So everything that we are doing has to be standardized. So I'm going to show you on the machine how to do that, but this is the standard that we use for calibration. Okay, and then these are the blocks. These blocks we have an SOP in the on Tacitus, and then how do you prepare this blocks is already mentioned there. So you do them at the Green Pass lab, polishing and everything is done according to that SOP. Once these blocks are ready, then you fix everything onto the microscope stage. I'm going to show you next. This is the stage that we use for fixing our samples inside BSc. But as you can see, there is a difference in the height of our standard versus our samples. So our samples are much taller. So that's why what we do is we take a stub and mount our standards onto that stub so that they are all on the same height. It's not necessary that they are all on the exact same height because we can do some manual adjustment, but the more you keep the difference, the more you have to make an adjustment. So that's why it's always a good idea to bring them to the same height as much as possible. Now what you want to do is you want to fix your samples onto the stage so that they don't move around, and we can use the carbon tape for that. So what I'm doing is I'm simply cutting a small piece of the tape and then mounting it onto this stub. And as you can see, it's a double-sided tape, so then it's ready to be fixed. Okay, now as you can see, they are almost of the same height. So I have fixed it onto the stub. So this is my standards and the Faraday cup, and I have fixed them onto the same height. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix 2-3 of my samples onto this, and then we can prepare everything for scanning. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to fix the samples onto the stage. So before I do that, I just want to clean them. So I'm just going to spray some 70% alcohol onto Kim Wipe, and then going to give it a gentle rub. And one more time. Okay, once I'm done with the Kim Wipe, with 70% alcohol, I'm going to wipe it one more time with the dry Kim Wipe so that everything is off. And there might be some debris left, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just give it a spray of the air so that everything is clear, and also a little bit to the standard so that if there are any debris, they are wiped off. Okay, and then I'm going to place my samples. And that's your samples are ready to go inside the scanner, and you have to make sure like the height is smaller than this one, otherwise what's going to happen is you're going to hit the sensors once you go in. So now you go and click on the Flex M1000 software. So what it does, it starts running your software. Now you want to run it at very specific parameters. So I'm gonna, okay, you just hit enter, so it starts, and then you want to run it at very specific parameters that are standardized for our BSc protocol. So let's give it a minute to start up, to warm up. So now once you are on the instrument, there are certain parameters. So you have start and stop. So once you hit the start, the actual machine, the machine starts scanning, and once you hit stop, it stops. This is the specimen exchange. So specimen exchange, you hit that when you have to take out your sample or you have to put in your new sample. Air and evacuation are two exchanges. Filament exchange is not for us. If it is the filament is broken, then it will be. Now these are the parameters that we are interested in. So this is the electron beam setting. So we run our samples at 20 kilowatt. Our spot intensity is 70, and we keep working distance at 10. This is very important to keep the working distance same between all of them. Otherwise, you will be getting huge error in your reading. So once you have standardized that, you go to focus, you hit 10. So now the working distance is 10. After this, you go to menu and you go to save condition settings, and in that you hit your data display, and you don't want anything to display on your images. The reason is because you have to stitch all of these images together. You also go to the true image and then you uncheck this, and you go to the save settings, and this allows you to select where you are saving your folders. So for this, you go to select, you go to your same users. Do we have Azim? So yes, we have Azim here.
That's not me.
That's not you? Okay. Let me create a new folder called CIHR, and in that, what? Okay, let me create, there is already a folder called CIHR. Okay, let me create a new folder called Azim,
AZIN.
Azim and Allison. Okay, in that we will put the new folder as training by Ayaz. Okay, so I'm gonna save today's data here, and then name I want to give is test 12. Okay, test, and now this auto increment will actually keep increasing the number by 1. So then you save that, and then you hit save. So now that's how the instrument is going to remember everything. Now before we hit any other parameters, what we want to do is we first want to go to the variable pressure. So we are not doing it at high vacuum, we are doing it at variable vacuum, and then we are going to use 30 Pascal vacuum. Okay, and now what we want to do is we want to go for specimen exchange, because we are going to fit our samples in. Okay, so I hit specimen exchange, and what the instrument now does is it's going to let the air in. So you can see the air is blinking, so the instrument is allowing the air to come in. Now once it has reached the atmospheric pressure, then we can take it out, we can put our samples in. Meanwhile we are preparing this, you also want to prepare your record book, and what you want to do in your record book is you want to understand how your samples are organized. So on one page you will be taking the measurements of brightness, contrast, current and other stuff. And here you first want to prepare a map of your samples. So I know, like here is my standard, and this is how it is organized. So this dot is my Faraday cup, and then I have on left side I have 1001, and on the right hand side I have 1022. Okay, and now what I want to do is I want to prepare the lines, because I know I'll be creating a collage of this. So 1022 here and 1001 here, and I want to prepare the lines because I want to remember the number of collages that I'm taking and what is the direction I'm taking in. Okay, so normally it goes like this. You have image number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Sometimes you have numerous images like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So this is why it's very essential to keep the numbers, because your tissue, your bones, they are not like completely organized. So keeping this number will actually give you a very nice track of where you are going, and this is very helpful in image stitching. Okay, so now what you want to do is you want to create one more graph here. of what I call as the instrument parameters that you have to vary. Okay, so the first parameter that you want to keep an eye on is the current, and then you have brightness, and you have contrast. Okay, and what are the readings of standard 1 and what are the readings of standard 2. So your goal is to go for 125 and 150 for the standard. So until you reach that number, you have to keep playing with brightness and contrast until you reach your goal of 125 by 150. The reason why we want to do that is because these are the standards with I think with silicon dioxide and magnesium fluoride, and because their brightness with BAC is known, so this allows us to very nicely calibrate the concentration of calcium in the given sample. So as you can see, the air is now completely vented. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold it with both the hands, take the support of my fingers here, and then slowly bring it out. Okay, and now I'm gonna put my samples in. What I want to do is, as you can see, this is a larger hole here, and then there is a smaller one here, so it slides like this. Okay, and because I want to understand the orientation of my sample, it's a good idea to actually put them like this so that you remember your standard is here. Okay, so you can see it is perfectly aligned. This is how my sample is going to go in, and then I can see it's perfectly aligned. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to slowly now put it in. You can see it's gone. Okay, it has perfectly aligned, and I can also now put it in and see if it goes well. Okay, but I'm not going to push it in right now. What I have to do is I have to first capture the image, but before that I have to select the stub size. So stub size is what is the diameter of your stub, and ours is the 52 millimeter specimen holder. Okay, and I hit next, and I hit capture. So what the instrument does now is it's going to capture the photo of your sample. This allows you to very nicely navigate around your sample. Okay, so it has captured it. Okay, and now what I can do is I can actually push my sample in very slowly, and then as you can see there is a slight bump. So what you have to do is you have to actually lift it and tuck. That's how it goes. And then now what you can do is you can hit evacuate. So what the instrument is going to do now is it's going to evacuate the sample. So you can see you can hear the vacuum has started now. So meanwhile the instrument is performing the vacuum. What you have to do is you have to align your image, your camera. So without clicking any button, you have to first click on the manual alignment. So once you hit manual alignment, this actually allows you to navigate through your sample. So you want to cover it as much as possible. Once you have done that by dragging the mouse and actually dragging the window, so what you can do is you can actually increase or decrease the diameter of your observational area, and then you hit OK. So now the instrument is ready for imaging, but as you can see it's still evacuating. So until it reaches the 30 Pascal variable pressure, you should not start, because that has to be stabilized first and then only you can start. So as you can see, the evacuation light has stopped blinking, so that means the instrument has reached the required 30 Pascal, but you can see the difference. It says 30 Pascal, but then it's still at 40 Pascal. But we don't have to worry, it's going to come there by the time we are going to adjust the parameters. So now you understand, we start scanning, we stop scanning here, we do the specimen exchange using this button. We use air and evacuation for this, and these are the basic parameters that we are going to use. So for this we are going to use 20 kilowatt power. The current is going to be displayed once you start scanning. Spot size we use 70, and then we use working distance of 10. If you go to menu, you have electron beam settings. So in electron beam settings you can adjust all of these parameters. If you go to vacuum mode settings, you can select the vacuum. So in vacuum we are setting 30. Then detector settings is for us, we are going to use BAC composition analysis. So BAC is already there. We don't have to worry about other parameters. But if you have any questions, you can talk to Gian about that. Now, what I'm interested in is the focus first. Now, for that, what I do, let me show you how different parameters on this one work. So you have the magnification from here. So once you start scanning, you can change the magnification from here. You can adjust the focus from here, and you can adjust the brightness and contrast from here. These are the different scans. So once you hit scan, the instrument actually starts scanning. Not actually, why do I have to? Okay, the instrument starts scanning. What I'm going to do first is I'm going to start with autofocus. Okay, so you hit start, so it starts the observation. And then you hit autofocus and auto brightness and contrast. And then what you want to do is you want to double click on your standard, so the instrument directly goes there. Okay, if you hit on this capture, you have to right click and it shows you the scanning speed. Okay, now for this one, if you click on this arrow here, it also brings about the scanning. So you first want to go for a faster scan, so that you can see the standard here. You can look at this right now, it's at 100x magnification. We don't want to do 100x, we want to go for a lower magnification. 70 is better. We can also go up till 50. So once you can see this here, like I have reached this point where my standards are here, so you can see two of my standards here. Okay, and then what you want to do is you first want to do the working distance. So you hit it at 10 millimeter. So now what the instrument has done is it has actually gone up till 10 millimeter. And now you want to start with your contrast and brightness. So in my initial settings, the best contrast and brightness that I have found was minus 2.9, and the contrast was 89. Okay, so this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to first start with the brightness and contrast as 2.9. So for this, what you do is you go to BSc computing, and then you select your brightness and contrast. So the brightness is supposed to be minus 2.9 and the contrast is supposed to be 89. Okay, and as you can see, the detector gain is also supposed to be kept at 2. Okay, and now I know I can go up till 50 magnification. Now first thing I want to do is basically I want to focus first. And to do the focusing, I need to find an impurity in the sample. So for that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to a specific area and try and find an impurity. Now I know like the focus was as 5.9 millimeter, sorry 5.9 centimeter, and I have switched it to 10 centimeter. So using this, what I'm going to do is actually I'm going to start going down until I get a good focus. Okay, I'm still not getting a good image. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit auto brightness and contrast. So now you can see there are some impurities in my sample. So what I want to do is I want to focus on those impurities, and then so I'm not using the coarse or fine adjustment here. I'm going to use this one because I want the distance to remain the same at 10 centimeter. Sorry, 10 millimeter. So I'm making the adjustment here. I'm going a little bit up slowly, and you can see it's now getting focused. So you first start with like 50, try and get a focus a little bit, then go for 200, 300, 500. For example, because I have practiced it so much, so I know like I can easily get the okay, so I have got the have got the good focus here. Okay, so I know this is where my standards are. Okay, so this is standard 1 and this is standard 2. Now as you can see, they are looking a little bit dull here. So for that, what I want to do is first I want to go to the Faraday cup and measure my current, like how much current I'm pumping in. So you just go to the Faraday cup, go for like 4000 magnification, and you go to your electron beam settings, and here you can see the specimen current. So it is showing 379 picoampere, which is very low. We have to get at least 760. So right now the current is 379 picoampere. We have to go up till at least 760 picoampere. Cut. Okay, so we have to start with the specimen current first. So what I have done is I have first focused the electron beam onto the Faraday cup. What the Faraday cup does is it actually quenches all the electrons that are coming in. So basically whatever is emission, the instrument records it as the specimen current. So we want it to reach as between 700 to 800. If that is not happening, what you can do is you can go to the beam adjustment, and then you can increase your filament current a little bit so that you reach your required specimen current. The point to note here is the instrument, as it warms up, it increases the output onto the electron beam. So what you have to do is you have to make sure like you are not pumping it too much. So I'm going to take it to like 83, but then it goes up to like 850. My goal is to go to 840, but I know the instrument is going to warm up and it's going to go up a little bit. So I'm going to keep it at 82 and see how it goes. So it's at 689, so it's going to come up to 700. Our goal is to reach between 700 to 800. Yeah, ideally it should be between 750. So the current is set. I know my Faraday cup. So I come out now and I go to my first first standard. So my goal here is to make sure like I'm getting 125 and 150. So for that, I'm going to start with the brightness and contrast. So the brightness that I have got my previous results was minus 2.9 and the contrast of 89. So when I pump it here, I can see there is still some difference, but maybe I'll have to change it a little bit. But let's see how it goes. Now you want to look at the gray values of this, and this software called Pixie is going to help you do that. So you click on Pixie. So what Pixie does is it actually gives the gray value of wherever you are going. So now I'm going to hit the slow scan and I'll try and identify the values of each pixels. So this is the most trickiest part, where you have to adjust the brightness and contrast to get these values at 125 and 150. So right now you can see here 108, 115, 205. So I am getting the overall idea that this is on average about 110 and this is on average about 140. Okay, so I need to pump up like little 10 or 15. Now what happens is, once you increase the contrast, basically there are two peaks. So one is at 125 and one is at 150. Now once you increase the contrast, what's going to happen is these peaks are going to get separated farther, and if you increase the brightness, they're going to shift to the right, and if you decrease the brightness, they're going to shift to the left, and if you decrease the contrast, they're going to come closer. So you have to play with increase decrease of both the parameters to make sure you are getting 125 by 150. Now I know that these are a little bit less bright, so both of them are low. Like I know one is at 110, the other one is at 140. So if I increase 10 units of brightness, I'm going to get that. So what I'm going to do is, instead of minus 2.90, I'm going to increase it to minus 2.80 and then see what are my numbers. So as you can see, it is at 116. On an average, I think it's 120. And this one on an average is 149, 146, 150. So I think I can still pump it up a little bit. So minus 2.78. So this has come to 120 on average, and this has come to 145 on average, so I'm going to go to minus 2.76, and you can see 115, 122. So I have gotten almost close. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to individual standards, go to 75x, because 75x is the magnification that we are going to capture our sample set. So I'm going to switch to slow scan again, and then I'm going to go to my sample number 1, which is I know is at 125, and then I'm going to switch it to 75 magnification. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit capture here. So the instrument is going to capture one image. Okay, now before I do that, I need to do my capture settings. So I want to capture at 2560 by 1920. So what this means is it's basically how much resolution you are capturing your images at. So the highest is 5120, which is 4K, but I think 2K is also fine. This is the time that it does to capture that image. The more time you take, the lesser the noise and sharper are your images. But 64 I have found it's most suitable. So these are my capture settings. You go to capture settings by right clicking on the capture. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now I'm going to hit capture here. So the instrument is going to capture the image. I can see it's looking a little bit bright. So while this is running, you also want to start your image J. Now the idea is we have to capture the histogram and we have to reach the peak of 125. So once this image is captured, you go to the folder where you have saved this image. So Sam users, Azeen and Allison, training by Ayaz. So this is where your image is going to get saved. I think it's a little bit bright. Once your image is captured, it will be appearing like freeze. So that means your image has been captured. And you will see the capture button will also stop blinking here. So then you go to your folder where that image is saved, and then you take it and drag it on the image J. And on image J, you hit Control H, which stands for histogram, and then it will show you what is your mean, what is your max. So as you can see, the mean is 130.853. You can see here the mean of your histogram is 130. This is bright, we want it 125. Okay, so I'm going to close this one, I'm going to close this one, I'm going to go back to my instrument again, and I'm going to decrease the brightness a little bit more. So I'm going to go to minus 279. Okay, and I'm going to hit capture again. So you have to keep doing this until you go to 125, and 125 is half of the story. Then you go to 150, and then you have to make sure it's at 150, maintaining 125. Okay, now because you are getting close to the requirement, so we started with the brightness of minus 2.79. We went for the contrast of 89, and now we are going to measure how much S1 we are getting. The moment you reach 125 on S1, then you can go to S2, and then you can change the parameters until you receive 125 by 150. So once you have captured that image, you drag that image onto image J, hit Control H, so it will give you the histogram. So as you can see, the histogram is 126.19. So we are very close. So what we do is we record these parameters. So we have brightness as minus 2.85 and the contrast as 87, and the value we are getting is 126, which is not perfect, but then we are close. So we want to go and check the the other one. So you hit the run, and then you slowly move it around to go to the standard 2. Now your goal here is 150. So then you have reached the standard 2, and then you hit capture, and then you want to record the values of standard 2. So I have the image of standard 2. I'm going to drag it onto the image J, hit Control H, and as I can see here, the brightness is too high. It's 158.06. So as you can see here, my specimen current is 676, which is pretty stable for now. My brightness is minus 2.85, contrast is 87. The standard one is 126 and the standard 2 is 158, which as you can see, both of them are higher. So what I want to do is I want to lower this just to only 1 point, but this one to the significant point. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to decrease the contrast, and I'm also going to decrease the brightness. So what's going to happen is I'm going to decrease the brightness to 2 points. So this is going to come down from 126 to 124 maybe. And because I'm also going to decrease the contrast, this one is going to come down to 2 points, but this is going to rise up 1 point. So I think that's where we will get the idea. So this is what I'm doing. I'm decreasing the contrast from, brightness from minus 2.85 to minus 2.87. And this one I'm decreasing from 87 to 85 and see what happens. So I go to my instrument detector settings. Instead of minus 2.85, I'm gonna hit minus 2.87, and instead of 87, I'm gonna try 85, and then I hit capture and see what happens. Now using my Pixie, I can see it has gone brighter. And you can also record the current from here. So as you can see, the current is still going up. So it's 689 current, which is a bit worrying because the current has to be stable by now. So it's a good idea to start your instrument early and then let it warm up for 1 hour 15 minutes so that your current is very stable. Okay, so we got 778 nanoampere current, we got minus 2.94 brightness, and we got 80.5 contrast, and S1 we got was 125.40, and the S2 now I'm getting at 154.29, which is not ideal, but it's still not bad because you are very close to this values. So we have kept the standard 1 at 125 and standard 2 at 154.29. So now our current, our brightness, our contrast, gain, everything that is variable in this machine has been calibrated. What we want to do now is we want to go for imaging. So now we don't touch brightness, contrast, gain, electron current. No other instrument parameters should be varied now. You don't touch any of the controls. The only thing that is going to vary is slight difference in your focusing. The reason is because you think like visually it seems like they are at the same height, but then there is still a few microns of distance. So that's why what you want to do now is just adjust the focus. You are not adjusting anything else. So now you close this, you close the brightness, the BSC detector setting, you close your electron beam settings because you are not going to touch that. And now you see in your map you want to go to the 1001 first. So you go here, you take your mouse there, and then you double click, and then you hit run. So what you are getting is basically the live images of your sample. So as you can see, we are pretty much in focus, but it's still a little bit out of focus. Now before I start focusing, I want to go for the save condition setting. I go to save settings, I hit select, and in training by Ayaz, I want to create one new folder which will be named 1001. So 1001 is my sample. So 1001, open, and instead of test I want to name it 1001, and I want to hit auto increment at 1. So what the instrument does is it now saves at 1001 underscore 1, 1001 underscore 2, 1001 underscore 3. So now you hit save. So first what you want to do here is you want to adjust the focus, but you don't want to change any of the instrument parameters. So what you do is using this screw, you are going to adjust the height of the sample. So for that, I'm gonna just hit the small window here. So you can see the small window button here. I'm gonna go to a deformity in the sample such as a micro crack. I'm gonna focus it. And then using this, I'm just gonna go it a little bit upside. Okay, so now I have adjusted it at 450. I'm gonna go up till 2000, then I'm gonna adjust it one more time. Okay, so now my sample is in focus. I come back to 75. I go for a scan. Okay, now what you want to do is you want to start at one end and slowly you want to capture the tiles. Okay, so I can see the orientation of my sample. Okay, so I can see that this is how my sample looks. So I can start at any end I want. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start at this end. I'm going to go to the stage setting and I'm going to click onto this icon. So this allows me to measure the distance. So right now, before I go there, let me show you one more thing. Close the Pixie because you don't need it anymore. Go to data and then you try and measure the distance. You can see this is 1.18 and this is 1.68. So my image is about 1.18 millimeter by 1.66 millimeter. I want to give it a little bit of overlap. So in stage setting, I go to this option and I say like, yeah, move 1.5 millimeter on X and 1.1 millimeter on Y every time I hit this. Okay, so I go to this end. And now you can see 1.50. So this is the stage setting. So right now I'm gonna go one more time. Here is the stage, and on that stage I'm gonna hit the option here. So this is stage move setting. I want to move the stage very precisely and I want to give it a little bit of overlap so that when I pull my images in ICE, there is an overlap and then the computer can identify itself and recreate the whole image. So because I know the image size is 1.6 by 1.2 millimeters, so instead of that I'm giving 1.5 by 1.10, so there is 100 microns overlap between the X and Y. So every time I hit here, the instrument is going to move it in this direction. And I hit here, the instrument is going to move in the other direction. Okay, so you want to start at the point which is at one point so that you can actually then start scanning in the zigzag fashion. You can also orient your sample around. For example, right now it looks like my sample is not like this but a little bit like this. So what I can do is I can actually tilt it in the other direction. So I'm going to hit 15 degrees and then I'm going to rotate it in the other direction. Okay, so now my sample is perfectly aligned. Okay, and let me see if it is completely straight. Yes. Okay, so this will come with practice, but then you will understand how to align. So you go to stage move setting and then you can align your sample well. Okay, so now you are at the position. You have mentioned your settings of how to save it, and then you hit capture. So what you have done is you have started from lower right corner. So then you will write down here, you started with 1 on the lower right corner. Now depending upon whether you want to go from right to left or you want to go from lower to upper. So based on that you will keep going. Okay. So here is our first image. And you can see here there are some areas which are darker, there are some areas which are brighter. So all these areas which are brighter, they are basically the areas of high mineralization. And this is what we are going to do in our imaging. So in our imaging, we are evaluating these areas of higher versus lower mineralization. What is the distribution? So that's why BSE analysis is also called as bone mineral density distribution, because you are trying to understand what is the calcium distribution in your vertebrate. Okay, so the instrument has captured one image and it has frozen. Now what you do is you go to run, and you want to go towards the left or do you want to go towards up?
Let's go up.
Let's go up. So if you want to go up, basically you have to move the stage down. So then you hit here. So the instrument has moved down and then you capture. So this is your second image. Okay. Similarly, you capture your third image and then you move towards the other side. Now, this animal is controlled and it was treated with zoledronic acid. And this is the reason why you are seeing all these bright areas of hypermineralization, because zoledronic acid is promoting mineralization. While compared to this, when we go to the next image, you will see it was infested with tumor and it was not given any treatment. We will see the difference. Once you are done with complete scanning of your sample, for example, in this one it took us 13 images, so 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 12 13, and we are done with this sample. So once you are done with this, what you do is you go to again menu, save settings, select, and then you change your folder. So for example, the next sample that we are going to do is 1022, so I'm going to hit 1022 and I'm going to change the file name as 1022. Hit save, and again I'm going to hit auto increment at 1 and save it. And this one I'm going to move out, and then I know where my second sample is, right? It was on the right upper left corner, so I hit double click there. So the stage is going to move there. Okay, so now I have my 1022 vertebrae here. As you can see, it's a little bit out of focus, so first I'll have to bring it in focus. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to hit the small window, and you can see it here. I'm going to focus it on a deformity. I'm not going to touch any of the control parameters. I'm just going to adjust the stage. So let's see, it's actually getting dimmer. Okay, and then I'm going to go to 400, focus on a deformity. Again, go till 2000. Yep, so my sample is in focus now. I'm ready to run. Now you can see the difference here. Look at this vertebrae. You can clearly see the difference, right? Half of the bone is gone because of the tumor. You can see the vertebrae is almost destroyed. So now what I'm going to do is you can see the orientation of the vertebrae. The vertebrae is like this. So I want to adjust it to make it like this. So this angle is about going to be 35. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change it to 35 degrees. Hit enter. Now what it does is it's actually going to rotate the, okay, so as you can see the whole stage is rotating. So your vertebrae has moved out of focus. So then you again double click and then it's going to take you there. Okay, so here is your vertebrae again. And again, because we are using the same parameters, so we don't have to worry. We can just start capturing images by going to 75x. So we are capturing all of our images at 75x and then we combine them. So right now we are capturing them at 0.33 micron resolution, which is good enough. For BSE we need 1 micron resolution, so we are actually using 3 times lower resolution. So you go to one end and then you hit capture. So what the instrument does is it captures one image. So I have started in lower right corner, so I'm going to write 1, and then you can go for like the left position 1 2 3 4 5, or you can go up. and then you can cover the whole area in a serpentine fashion. And you can clearly see like the areas of mineralization are very low here. Actually, there is not much bone left itself. So of course there are not many areas of hypermineralization. You can also see it in the intensity values. For example, if I switch on the Pixie again and look at the images of 1001, I can see this is 170, this is 149, this is 144. So I can look at the areas of gray values, they are much higher. While if I go to the 1022, and look at the pixel values here, 140, 150, 109, 106, 105. So of course even the area of hypermineralization in this bone is actually less than the regular mineralized bone. So we can clearly see the difference that whenever there is a tumor infestation, the area of mineralization is less, and even the area that is having some mineralization, its intensity is quite less compared to the healthy ones. Of course, we are not just comparing the healthy ones, we are comparing the healthy which was treated with zoledronic acid. So it has like surplus amount of calcium. Now this is just about the instrument part. So once you are done with this scanning, you have done all of your samples 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For example, in here I go further, so I capture my second image, go further, capture my third image, then move around 4, 5, 6, 7, zigzag fashion. I'll complete them all, and then I'll have all of my data stored here in the folder that I have designed, like 1001 or 1022. Then I asked Zian to give me this folder, so he will transfer them to you on Google Drive, and then you will take this data onto your computer. So next of our session is we are going to do it on my computer, and I'm going to show you how you can reconstruct your images and do the analysis. Okay, once you have received your data from Gian, download all of your data and save it as raw files. Don't do anything with them. Copy your files, and then you want to have an image stitching software. You can do it in ImageJ if you are comfortable. If you are comfortable with any other software, I am using Image Composite Editor from Microsoft. So what you have to do is you have to, because you have kept a really nice overlap between your images, it's easy for software to identify all of your images. And then you drag all of your images into this ICE, and then it stitches them for you. And once it is stitched, you go to next. So this is how your images should look like, and you close it, and then you go next, and then you export to disk. But then you don't want to save it as JPEG because JPEG has limited resolutions. You want to save it as TIFF, and you hit export to disk, and then you can save it in your desired folder where you want to take it for image analysis, right? And then you name it as like 1027 stitched image, something like that, whatever you want to name it. But then this is your full complete image that contains all the information, and normally it's about 200 MB in size, so it's a very big file. So you want to be like mindful of space when you are saving these images. Once that is saved, you discard the changes that you want to make, you have made, but then you have saved the original file, and then you go to your images, and then take one of the image. For example, here I have one image, and then you put it onto ImageJ. Sorry. Okay, once you have your constructed image, take it to ImageJ. Take your image and open it in ImageJ. Once you have opened your image into ImageJ, what you want to do is you want to remove anything that's not of interest to you. So you hit the polygon, and then go through the whole area that you want to cover, and then you go to edit, and you remove clear outside, so it will clear the outside area that you don't want, and then you hit Ctrl H, so it will give you the histogram. Sorry, I'm just going to clear it a little bit part just to show you. Okay. And then I want to select the area. For example, here I'm just using for an example, but you have to like manually select the
Sorry, it's a
the
touch
whole
screen.
manually select the whole vertebrae, and then you hit Control H, so it gives you your histogram. So then you copy your histogram and take it to Excel. Okay, so this is your histogram. Okay, once you have your histogram values, you want to go to your template Excel sheet. Now what this does is it actually identifies the pixel value, and as you can see in the formula, what it does is it actually normalizes those values. So every time you go to the next column, what it does is it actually smooths out your graph, and then it gives you the filtered values. So it actually removes the variation in your data. So what you want to do is you want to paste your values here. So for example, here is the values that I have got from my histogram, and then I'm going to paste them here. So what it has done is it actually has smoothed out my data, and then it has given me these filtered values. So what you want to do is now you want to take this filtered values, again copy them and take them to the new file, and then paste them as values. Sorry. And once you paste them as values, you have got your values associated with each histogram. And then what you want to do is you want to arrange them from largest to smallest and expand your data. So now you have the largest to smallest value. So you take it, you copy it, and then you go back to your Excel sheet, and then you can see the maximum intensity and associated gray value. So you paste your data there. So once you have pasted your data, this Excel sheet has already the formulations to calculate your values, and then it will give you the values here. So these are from my previous experiment, so I delete this. So I have got the fuel width half maximum at 33, maximum intensity at 2.62, gray level at 105, average gray level at 98. So these are the 4 values that you are going to need. Full width half maximum, maximum intensity gray value, and average gray level value. So that's going to give you all of your data. Once you have these values, this is what you are going to do for your each file, for your each image. Now this is global analysis, because what you have done is you have taken gray values of global analysis. Similarly, what you want to do is you want to crop out individual trabeculae, you want to crop out the cortical shell, you want to crop out other areas where you think there might be a large difference, because we know when the tumor sets in, it actually first goes for the trabecular bone and then it slowly moves out to the cortical shell. So if your tumor is like very minute, it's going to first cause a difference to the trabecular bone. If it's a very large tumor, it's going to destroy everything. So that's why we do 2 types of analysis, what we call as the global analysis, where we take the whole vertebrae, and local analysis, where we are going to crop out small parts of the vertebrae such as trabecular bone or cortical shell, and then we are going to do the analysis on them. So once you have obtained these values, you paste those values in your Excel sheet of raw data or compiled data, where you also have the formulas to convert the data into maximum calcium and other values. So for example, here what I have is I have my sample number, I have the treatment that was given, where does it have a presence of tumor, what was the standard that I got, and then maximum intensity, gray value, average gray level, and full width half maximum. So once I put these values like full width half maximum, I put it 33. So then the Excel sheet will calculate how much was the full width half maximum of calcium. Similarly, when I put average gray level, for example, here is the other 3 parameters. So when I paste that, when I paste that, it calculates like, yeah, maximum peak calcium for sample 1048 is 14.59, average calcium is 13.7, and full width half maximum is 4.29. And as you can see, there are samples with tumors, so then you can see they have like very low calcium, high calcium, average calcium, and then full width, half maximum. So all these three parameters, they are called as bone mineral density distribution, because you are trying to determine what is the peak calcium, what is the average calcium, and then you are also determining what is the distribution of calcium. So that's how, starting from BSc block sample preparation, you go all the way up till getting these three values, and these three values will give you what is the bone mineral density distribution of your sample. So I just showed you for one sample. You have to keep going for all the samples, as well as you have to do the analysis on local as well, like individual trabecule or cortical shell. So that's how you get your values. Okay, once you are done with your imaging and you are ready to start with your next sample, you switch this height to 0, so 5 centimeter distance between them, and then you hit specimen exchange. So what it's going to do is it's going to allow the air to come in, and then you are ready to take out your sample, and then you complete your imaging. The air light stops blinking, that means the vacuum has been removed. And then you can slowly take this out. Slowly slide your sample out. Put it here. Close it back. Keep it under vacuum if you are going to shut down the instrument and not going to put any other sample. If you're going to put any other sample, just let it on. First thing that you want to remove is your standard. So using this sharp knife, slowly slide it below your standard. Pick it up. Let it slowly go inside the tube. Okay. Put the packaging and close it. Once this is closed, this is secure. And then what you can do is you can remove your samples. If you are thinking of doing one more sample, you can let your standard sit on. Just remove this one and put your new blocks. Again, put them down. Go back to the machine and start with this one. So mostly once the instrument is stable, it's going to keep on that same parameters. You don't have to worry much. But if you're coming the next day, then it's going to be again 3 hours of more calibration and standardization. So that's why, in my experience, if I'm doing BSc, I would start early in the morning and I would stay until late in the evening, and I would try and cover at least 8 to 10 samples a day. It may be like 12-hour day, but then it saves a lot of time on calibration. Okay. Once you are done with that, close this one, hit evacuate. So what the instrument does is it's gonna suck out all the air and then maintain the vacuum. And then you want it to stay under the vacuum as much as possible. This one is done. This you can put it back here. And these are your samples, so they can go back in the block. Clean the mess here, put everything back where it was found. And then put your log here, like which day, how much you have used, was there a technician or other information, and then you are good to go. So once the instrument is back to the vacuum again, what you want to do is you want to close everything. So you want to exit the SIM manager, you close it, it says exit, so you exit, and then you switch it, only the display of, never turn off the computer, and then you come here. And then you switch off the machine. So now the machine is under vacuum, and the next one, they can come, they can start